It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a weekly podcast where we talk about everything that's great. Like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
And my name is Mike.
Yes, and this week we're diving into Netflix's Geeked Week with tons of video game and anime announcements, and that's pretty much it.
Yes, hopefully you like video games or anime, and
or your video games
diagram in the middle.
Yeah, your video games becoming anime, your anime becoming video games. We don't know. We'll see. So we got that at the top of the show. Spider-Man is getting a bigger MCU presence overall. We're going to talk about some of those rumors. Deadpool and Wolverine finally come home. We'll give you guys some announcements on when you can catch up with your favorite R-rated team in the comfort of your own home and more. And by more, I mean, we're going to talk Agatha at the end of the show, but I didn't put it up here because I didn't know if Mike had watched it yet. So we're going to be talking Agatha first two episodes.
Yes, I got the Madonna song pure, fresh in my head because since we just had a baby, my wife hadn't had a chance to see Deadpool and Wolverine, and we have Grandma in town this weekend helping us out. So we went out and we watched Deadpool and Wolverine. And it was kind of like a challenge because I had to ask my wife. I was like, okay, well, what do you remember about, the other Deadpool movies? What do you remember about, X-Men stuff? Because, I wanted to prime her before we went and watched
should have done that. I just let her go and be like, what do you think?
But I don't want to spoil, want to spoil anything. I don't want to be like, oh, do you remember, Johnny Storm from the Fantastic Four? Because, the act of bringing it up, keys her into are they in the movie? So I left it to just two pretty simple things of at the end of Deadpool 2, he had his cable time traveling thingamajig. So that's important to remember because if you're somebody going in fresh, you're going to be like, why is this character how can they just go wherever they want to go within timelines? That's kind of crazy if you don't know that. Mm-hmm. And then since she brought up the fact, well, isn't Wolverine dead? So I was like, well, I'm not going to go into the fact that there's a bunch of multiversal Wolverines. They'll get to that point. Yeah. So I just laid out.
I just be like, they'll explain it.
Yeah, I was like, Wolverine died in Logan, and she did remember that he was buried in the ground. I was like, all right, that's all you need to know. You're primed. You're ready to go. Everything else should be pretty smooth.
Yeah, they do take a big, I guess I'm going to say courtesy, but a lot of that movie does bring you up to speed, right, on a lot of that stuff. Here's the important parts. Do you remember anything about Deadpool 1 or 2? No? All right, well, too bad, or not too bad, but here's all the new stuff you need to know to kind of get into. I just said Loki. If I was you, I would have been like, do you remember Loki?
Well,
but
I knew I didn't need to bring that up because we had actively watched that show together, finished season 2 somewhat recently. Yeah. So I knew she was primed on the TVA. So we were pretty good to go. The only thing I had seen the movie, but I couldn't even remember. I was just like, he's trying to get back together with his girlfriend, or he's not. That part is not as important, but just remember there was a woman in his life, and I think he's trying to impress her in this movie. It doesn't matter, but I think that's part of it.
Brenna Baccarin has less and less time the more Deadpool movies she's in. If that gives you any inclination. For that, but we're going to talk more about Deadpool. We actually got that in here. I'm going to go and crack open our drink for the show. I've got a new Arizona spiked beverages. We are not sponsored by them unless they somehow put an ad in front of us, and I would be surprised.
Unless they want to,
they
can.
Absolutely. We'll take anybody at this point. But a snack update. That was people loved our snack updates so much that the AI we've been playing around with AI, people, and Mike, I want to share the story about how we've been toying with Google's Notebook LM, how it creates a 2-person talk show based on our show notes. And Mike had a great idea. He was like, "Hey, feed it our transcription of our actual audio," and it created a 7-minute quote unquote podcast where 3 minutes of it was about snacks. And I'm like, boy, they really nailed us. They know exactly who they're imitating here because we love talking about snacks, and it's that season, right? That's the best part of the fall is all the new flavors and stuff like that. And I've got these Arizona premium spiked juice beverages. I was able to get my raspberry Uncrustables. Yes, call me a child. I'll take it. I'm a
real
man
adult
child.
over here on this microphone.
We literally were leaving Kroger and we ran into my wife's coworker, and literally we had a block of Gouda cheese, a box of liquor, a bag of Uncrustables, and I forget what else we got on the way out. There was something else on the way out we bought. I was like, we are only getting the essentials at Kroger today, folks. Do not judge us. We already did our grocery shopping, so.
Yeah, the more your conversation goes on, the more you start slowly pushing the cart behind you. No one needs to see what's in this right here.
No. The worst part, we didn't have a cart. We were holding it in our hands. There was no hiding this at all. We only had 4 items. But it was fun. It was fun to do that. So and then Superfan Jim told me he got his hands on the Welch's Grape Ghost this week, Mike. Which we have not yet, or at least I haven't. You might have at this point. I don't think you have, but
no, not yet. It's hard out there, but that's the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah,
because once you finally find it, it's exciting.
Yeah. It's ghosting us, if you will, pun intended. But anyway, snack update for those who are interested in snacks and maybe want to talk about some bits of news. We can jump right into Netflix's Geeked Week, because that went on this week. I actually didn't know Geeked Week was going on until I saw the news, and this is pretty much all it was. Now, there are a lot more things coming out of Geeked Week that don't really affect the topics of the show as much. I know it's not Ready Player One. Squid Games. Squid Games had an announcement and some other stuff. I'd not watched Squid Games. I understand the show, but like it's not there. But we're going to talk about the stuff that's kind of adjacent to the things we watch and talk about. And I tried to put the fun things at the front and the more interesting items at the bottom of the list, Mike. Okay. So we're going to jump into one of the shows that took us by storm last year was One Piece, Netflix's live action adaptation of the anime/manga One Piece. And the one thing we got out of this, they are filming season 2 right now. And the one thing we did get out of this is our first look at the live action, I'm going to use this loosely, live action Tony Chopper, the medic that the team will pick up starting with season 2. And he's notorious because he's not a person. He is more of a reindeer with a fuzzy hat and antlers. And we were like, how are they going to do this character? How will they pull this off? Well, we've got confirmation it's going to be full CGI character, Mike. And we get a little bit of his quote-unquote table read. They said he was too short to get up to the table, but he's here for the table read. And looks fine, right?
It's his back to the camera, so you don't really get to see the face, but you do get to see he is a full CG character. Chris and Chris might know more because he likes to go on the internet and Google things. I don't know anything about this character except that there's shape-shifting components involved, so it seems like there won't always be maybe a CG element to it fully. The antlers, do those cross over? Am I remembering that right? So if they take the form of a human, it's like a human with antlers? Yeah.
He essentially, if he does transform or buff up or whatever it is, he is... They do maintain. He's got the big hats on. I honestly thought this... What was that Netflix show where the kid has antlers?
Sweet Tooth.
I thought it was a Sweet Tooth image at first when I looked at it. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that.
Well, it's funny. I don't know exactly how early Tony Chopper shows up within the anime, but I feel like they needed to pass the season 1 hurdle, right? Of like Netflix is not going to give you any money to render the CG character unless season 1 goes well, and I think season 1 surprised many people, especially over at Netflix. So they're just like, yeah, here's the budget to do this full CG character, at least, for a little bit.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think we would have ever been exposed to One Piece without the success and quality of the Netflix show. So I do applaud them for that. And I just looked up. So Tony Chopper, he has a human fruit is what he. You know how Luffy has the stretch fruit. He's the human fruit, which lets him transform into a full-size reindeer or a reindeer-human hybrid. But he is the doctor for the team here, so he will be probably the one who he heals them up as they get into bigger conflicts, kind of along the way.
Yeah. I mean, there was another bit of news for One Piece that I wasn't expecting. Our guy on the show who always gets cast in everything and never comes to fruition, Mr. Joe Manganiello, was cast as like I said, I don't know the show. I don't know if this headline reads Mr. Zero or Mr. O, but somebody along those lines is who he's playing. So I mean, Joe Manganiello, he's a big pull. I mean, he's a guy. I mean, supposedly he could have been bigger if his Deathstroke movie appearance ever would have actually happened in the past.
Yeah. Well,
but, Joe Manganiello, he's a name. He's a get.
Yeah, he is definitely a big name. He's in Spider-Man, right? He was the original Flash Thompson in the original Spider-Man trilogy. He's a big Dungeons and Dragons nerd, doing all that stuff. Some people may remember him more for what was the erotic dancer movies?
Magic Mike.
Magic Mike. Yeah, there we go. I was like the one with Gambit because I was trying to bring it back in here and I lost it. So absolutely, like, yeah, I'm very, very, very excited for this. There's a bigger cast in here. Even David Dastmalchian was announced as a cast member. So they're adding some people in here. I'm looking forward to doing it, watching the show, but I'm also trying not to read into what the show's going to bring. Right, I want to be surprised because there are thousands of episodes and chapters of the manga and anime, and I don't want to know. I had a good time going in completely blind, Mike, and I would love to keep going in blind. I guess blinder and blinder, if you will. But the announcement here did spur me to watch, as I told Mike last night, the live-action Dragon Ball adaptation, Dragon Ball Evolution from 2009. And I will tell you, as someone who's an apologist, who's like, oh, they made an attempt, a 5 out of 10, they were trying. Madam Web looks good compared to Dragon Ball Evolution, Mike. And that is saying something because we gave that movie a tumbling, earlier this year. And probably again when Kraven comes out in December. But like Dragon Ball Evolution was a kick in the teeth for any Dragon Ball fan. As someone who interacts with the property on a weekly basis, it was like maybe my memory's bad, and it's really not that bad. No, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. So I'm glad live action adaptations of anime are quality these days, right? That's what we're looking for here. So yeah. But anyway, that image, all these, we have a bunch of links for this Netflix. If all these links are in our show notes, by the way, if you want to get in there in your podcatcher of choice, as Mike would say, or wherever, go to our website, superheroslate.com, check out the show notes. They're all here. Moving along, Mike, I'm not a foot person, but I could only find photos of feet for this next topic. And that is for Avatar: The Last Airbender Season 2. The production is underway as well, and they're teasing Toph, the Earthbender, who some people say was one of the best characters additions to the original anime or animated show. For book 2, she is, for those who may not know, and I know this because I've only watched it recently, she is a blind character, but is able to be one of the best Earthbenders in the world, if you will. Yeah. So Mike, I know
like a Daredevil style senses in a way.
Yeah. So
he operates.
So the first one we have a CGI hat for one piece, and then just a picture of feet for this one. Does it? I know we're not big fans of the first season. Even myself being kind of out of it, it's like meh. And I know you're even less of a fan, but like probably better than the maligned Avatar movie. But does this make you, knowing that they've taken that feedback and they're going into season 2, introducing this character, does that make you more excited or not? Because I know she's a good character.
I mean, I think I saw everything I needed to see with the execution of parts of season 1. I think the best that I can get out of this live action Last Airbender is just wait until the series is done, which I guess time is on their side, where they just only need really 3 seasons to get it done. Mm-hmm. And I can just, out of curiosity, pop in on some iconic episodes. Well, I don't remember if this happens in season 2 or not, but there's a pretty big pivotal moment for Zuko that happens, I believe, underneath the Earth Kingdom in like this kind of crystal cave, and I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool maybe to see what that looks like rendered in live action.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a fan edit stuff. like someone takes this season and kind of fan edits it down.
Yeah, maybe. Like I just kind of want to see like the highlight reel. It's just not for me. I mean, it's somebody who's just so adores the animated series. Like they just didn't do enough for me to justify the existence of this. So I mean, I'm glad people can get excited for Toph's cool character, but not for me.
I think the existence is justified. It's good. They need to redeem themselves, but obviously they didn't do it. But I just want to take this as an opportunity, Mike, to take your energy here. Is like, does this live action version affect your love for the original show? No. Like no, you still love the original show. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Like just because someone makes a bad adaptation later doesn't affect your love and your ability to rewatch the original, right? Like that's the beauty of this stuff. It's very, very spaced out. They're not going to go back and re-edit the animated show to match the live action kind of thing. So I think that's something people like. Yeah, you don't like the new one? Fine, go watch the old one. That's still there, and you can hold it in your hands. Be like, look at this. But they are committed. At least Netflix is committed to going ahead and seeing all 3 seasons through. I think we talked about that. That's even though may not love it, may not like it, that's at least a good commitment rather than them. Hey, we're pulling the rug out 1 season in, and that's all you ever get kind of deal. So glad they're going through with that. Hopefully they give us some. I know they had I think some footage tied to this, but it wasn't anything like a full body reveal of Toph along the way. The third thing I know you would be excited for, this is or at least interested in, that touches the things you enjoy. So Arcane season 2, they will debut and it will be released in a 3-arc event, if you will, across November 9th, 15th, and 23rd. And a lot of footage leaked online a few months ago. I think maybe you saw that there was like a I don't know if it was a Netflix hack or something. Somebody leaked most of the footage of the season 2 online. But I know you really enjoyed the first season. Mike, are you looking forward to the return with the second season?
Yeah, the first season was phenomenal. I don't know if I love or hate that the second season is the last season, but at least that means they knew that ahead of time. They're going to tell us a full, complete story. My time is even more valuable than it was when the first season came out, so I guess I got to appreciate that. Yeah, this show is just beautiful. It's great. They're putting it all out there on the floor. It's interesting that Netflix is slowly starting to realize, our listeners, our subscribers like to binge, but also we keep dropping stuff, and then if it just doesn't happen to catch on the weekend it drops, it's like we never even spent millions of dollars to make it. Yeah. So they keep finding ways to stretch out the release of stuff. My wife has been kind of hate watching Emily in Paris, and that most recent season was kind of split into 2 parts. So now they kind of get 2 media cycles on that show. So it looks like they're going to get 3 media cycles out of Arcane. Yeah.
Sadly, it's only 1 month subscribing, though. They didn't think that through. But and I think ending it's fine because again, for me, Arcane is a League of Legends prequel. Right, this is before the characters show up in the League of Legends game. So for them to have an ending point here and then know where the game kicks off, I think that's awesome. What I did not know when this released at the time, in 2021, is obviously one of the characters is voiced by Haley Steinfeld. I did know that. Of Hawkeye, Transformers, obviously a singer, but the other one is Ella Purnell, who we just recently saw in Fallout. Mike, the 2 main characters. I did not know Ella Purnell was the voice actress for that. So. I don't know if that says how Fallout brought her to the front of everyone else's eyes. People may have known she was great beforehand, but I was like, oh, that's really fun to go back and take a look at that. So I think that's fun. So obviously you're excited for that. That's some good Thanksgiving content for you right there, Mike. Right over the Thanksgiving period, as well before we get into the holiday season proper. Now for things that we hate and aren't happy with. Rebel Moon, despite 4 movies, technically 2 twice, they have announced a video game tie-in called Bloodline. And I've got a trailer here, the announcement trailer in our show notes, and it plays top-down, kind of like Diablo, but you have like maybe 4 different characters. I can't tell if it's like you level up, you have skill trees. It's not really tells, but it's very... If I was honest, it's just kind of a generic top-down, kind of shooter action game. So I couldn't say, oh, this is what makes it Rebel Moon from the trailer. But it is a Netflix games exclusive, meaning it'll probably only be on mobile, right? I think Netflix games are only on phones and coming out in 2025. Does this give you any interest at all as a Netflix subscriber?
Chris, you know my answer. Absolutely not. And I think the only reason this even exists is because the tailwind of development on games is so long. So this probably started before they got any sort of like critical feedback on the Rebel Moon franchise, and they're like, well, now we got this game that like we just got to put out because it's done. So there won't be any more Rebel Moon video games. There's not going to be any sequels. Don't put any of your money or time into this. It's pointless.
Yeah, I think again, since it's free, that's a plus, right? If you have Netflix, you get to play it. To me, I mean, and I don't mean to be so cynical here. It looks like somebody just skinned another game that was built. They're like, hey, we made this game, does anyone want to buy it and add their property, their IP over it? And that's kind of what it feels like, right? Like, I don't feel like Rebel Moon in here, Yeah,
it could be possible. That's definitely something that happens out there.
Yeah, so, there's obviously the archetypes from the movie. There's the lady with swords for hands. There's a gunner, a couple other characters I don't remember. But, yeah, if anyone's going to play this when it comes out next year, good Lord, that's hard to think about. Let us know, because I don't subscribe to Netflix. I would love to just get someone's take. Like, is it a good game just with a bad IP attached to it, right? Like, that's what I would be interested in. So, keep us posted. Speaking of games that had a bad rap and then have come back around and gained fan and critical acclaim, Cyberpunk, as Netflix has announced a new project between Netflix Animation and the Cyberpunk world. And for people who may not know, Netflix originally did an animated show called Edge Runners several years ago that was set in the Cyberpunk world. So people are thinking this is a sequel to Edge Runners. They don't know. It's just a teaser right now on the video I linked here. Cyberpunk, I enjoyed the world. I think it's interesting. I did not have a good time playing the game when it came out. I probably need to revisit it with the fixes and the DLC. But obviously, I think that kind of cyberpunk world is prime for animation adaptation, Mike.
Yeah, I actually watched Edge Runners just because it started to get enough word of mouth kind of within my social media bubble, and I was like, oh, okay, this is actually something that people are enjoying and seems to be cutting through the noise. And I watched it, and I loved it. It was great. It's very gritty. I love the world. It's just kind of like dark and despair and just kind of techno punk all over the place. I played the game like a little bit. I think I had like a trial with PlayStation Premium or something, and I was able to dive into it for a little bit. It's a lot of systems, a lot of going on. It was a little overwhelming for me, but I would be down to just passively watch more of it. The first season, or I guess the only season of Edge Runners, kind of ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. So if they want to continue exploring the world with new characters, that would be great. But I'd love to see maybe a few of the characters that they developed in that other show kind of maybe pop back up. That'd be really cool. But I would be okay with this. This is cool.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love about the Cyberpunk world is, like, again, characters can come and go, right? So you could pull in, maybe it's not a direct sequel to Edge Runners, but it's like a spiritual sequel, and those characters pop in and out. Things you've seen in the world. Again, Idris Elba was a main character in the spinoff. The whole world in and of itself is primed to be explored and really kind of tell these stories. And I just like how fun, the cyberpunk stuff, the futuristic world, like the flying cars and like the cybernetic mods on people. Like, there's a lot of endless possibilities on abilities and characters you could see along the way. So glad to know you liked Edge Runners, because I was like, people were like, we hope this is a sequel to Edge Runners. So glad to know that the project was good enough and it wasn't just like a DOA thing, because the game had a rough launch. Magic the Gathering game I've played briefly. Mike, I'm familiar with the mechanics of Magic the Gathering, the card game. Are you familiar at all, or is this outside of your purview? Okay.
Familiar.
Perfect. That's perfectly fine. The first teaser, an image of the project that was once thought dead at Netflix, has been shown again. So announced in 2019 with the Russo brothers attached, there's a Magic the Gathering, I'm pretty sure, animated series being worked on at Netflix. Kind of quietly along the way, people attached to it were like, no, it's dead, it's canceled, it's not happening. The Russo brothers were moved off and someone else took over, and that person has now been announced. Gone at the Geeked event, they didn't give us any story details for this, but they've announced it'll be taken by Terry Matalas, who was finished Star Trek Picard, and we both recently talked about him as taking over as the person on Vision as well. Now people are like, oh, will this affect Vision? It's an animated show. It's probably been in production for a while, Mike. I probably not going to affect his show running capabilities on Vision. But I'd be interested to watch something set in the Magic the Gathering world if I don't have to buy the cards along the way.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, as somebody who's not super familiar with lore or story with Magic the Gathering, I got to imagine that you have to have a very flexible world if you're just going to invent endless cards over decades. You know, you probably can't have such a rigid structure where you just can't drum up stuff off the top of your head. I mean, probably a similar challenge when they made the D&D movie with Chris Pine and that amazing cast of kind of like the world's your oyster in a way, right? Mm-hmm. There's nothing saying you can or can't do this because you're just in a, for lack of a better term, generic fantasy world.
It's a theater of the mind, right? Like whatever you think of can exist as long as it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure it's kind of one of those things where if you're a big Magic fan, there's probably going to be tons of like Easter eggs all over the place of just like, oh, that random object in the background of that bar, that's a card, or something like that. Or, oh, that character is, a random... A card. Everything is a card.
Yeah, you can
in the world is a card.
You can reference the games, and the idea is, I think in Magic the Gathering, there's these powerful people called planeswalkers. Like the planes are like the different, I guess, areas you draw magic from. This is me kind of winging it here. So anyone who's familiar with Magic the Gathering lore, do let me know. But I played Magic the Gathering Duels of the Planewalkers on original Xbox. It was like a game where I was a sorcerer and I was using my cards to cast things, and they would come to life on the board as they moved across. And that's how I imagine like you were going to probably follow two powerful sorcerers as they gather up, and based on this image, as they gather up and either fight their way to the top, or similar to Dungeons and Dragons, they've been wronged in the world and they need to take down someone at the top who has making fraud. I imagine a lot like Dungeons and Dragons, the movie, now that you mentioned that. But knowing that it's animated, they can bring a lot of this to life, right? Like it can be really fun to showcase some of those spells they're casting that we see in the cards, or referencing, like the black. I think it's White Lotus. It's like one of the most oldest cards. But for the card series that's been around 30 plus years, or almost 30 plus years. I mean, I'm really surprised they've taken this long to adapt it into anything. If I was going to be completely, like, I'm surprised because it's so popular, right? Like they're selling cards left and right. Every 3 months they release a new, I guess, what's it called? Like a new set of cards that they can play with. So, and the Magic people, they're into it, right? Like I don't know if you know anyone who plays Magic, but like when you're in it, you're in the Magic world. Like you're buying and playing and trading cards all day long. So
yeah.
But if we gain more information, this will always let you know. It's just a very interesting that once the Russo brothers has been passed along to down, they're bringing it back. A couple more video games come to anime. Lara Croft, Legend of the Tomb Raider. We've talked about this one on the show a couple weeks ago. A new trailer shows off a lot of action. It's very high intensity. A lot of action in this trailer. Some mystical elements, which is on par with Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider is essentially, I guess, a more video gameized version of Indiana Jones, if you will. And again, as a reminder, this will be canonical for the game story taking place between the last game that came out and the first games we played on PlayStation when we were kids, Mike, watching those triangle boobs as much as we could in those old video games. I know you're not a Lara Croft fan. I do enjoy the new games by Squaresoft, or Square Enix, whatever they're called now. Does this bring you in? I know you're probably skimming through it. Like, is this more for you, or you're like, on the edge, if there's time?
Netflix must have data. They must have something going on here that shows them keep turning stuff into anime, and we are either going to grow subscribers or retain subscribers, because they've been kind of pulling this trick for a long time now. I feel like Netflix is just littered with a bunch of anime adaptations, and I would have thought it was a trick that didn't work, right? Because I really wasn't watching any of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, even though I just said I watched the Cyberpunk one and I liked it, and I watched Arcane and I liked that as well. So sometimes I get interested enough, but most of the time I'm just like, what is all this? It seems like they're just churning this out and everyone forgets about it. Mm-hmm. But I feel like they wouldn't do it if it either wasn't affordable or if they weren't having data supporting it. There's like a third option in my head that I have no idea if this is true or not, but like, are they getting some sort of like kickback, right? Like, is this Tomb Raider TV show like a secret commercial for the next video game? Because video game budgets are gigantic because they're actually selling an object. You're not just using it as a way to retain subscribers or even in another world, like, sell a digital download. Like, you're selling actual units of a video game. So maybe there's a part of the budget when that gets drafted for like other media, and maybe this Tomb Raider show is like Netflix is just like, all right, well, if you're gonna like kind of foot like part of the budget for this anime just on your video game budget, so you can get people hyped for the next Lara Croft game, like, this aligns with our sensibilities. I don't know if that's actually what's happening, but
there's no game. I'll tell you. So I looked up. There's no game in works for Tomb Raider right now. So it might be like maybe a bridge. Hey, it's cheaper to make an anime than to make a video game right now. So let's use this as a bridge as we figure out what our next Tomb Raider journey is, whether it's a reboot or not. I think to me, I'm going to go off an anecdote that we will bring up in Deadpool Wolverine about your wife, being able to finally see Deadpool and Wolverine and not spoiling herself for all these months, despite the fact we live in this all the time. We are not in the algorithm for Tomb Raider, right, or anime on Netflix. So they're probably popping off, and we're just like, we don't know, like we don't see it. So obviously it's not, but that's not the case, right? Like there's probably a lot more, calls, because a lot of these are animated, anime adjacent, properties we've talked about here, which really, really surprising. The other one, I actually didn't know about this. They're doing a Devil May Cry animated series at Netflix, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Devil May Cry games at all. Where he plays Dante, half human, half demon, devil hunter for hires mercenary. So it's very mobs of devil or demons are coming at you, and you have a lot of button mashing, a lot of actions, lots going on the screen. Very hyper. I wouldn't say violent because you're killing demons, but like one of his swords is like a chainsaw type sword that you slice through demons with. But what I didn't realize that this is being done by Adi Shankar, who is known for that Venom short, is it Life in Journalism, and the Punisher Dirty Laundry shorts, and more recently the Power Rangers bootleg Power Rangers thing, where they're all like R-rated and like 6-minute long shorts. Kind of thing.
Well, I think more relevant with him was he did the very well regarded Castlevania series on Netflix. Yeah. So I think that's probably what's pushing. That's a whole nother one too. Yeah, I'm over here bashing like all of these anime adaptations. I was like, oh yeah, Castlevania was just like really good. You got Cyberpunk and what was the other one? Arcane. Yep. So yeah, I guess I'm eating my own words here. So they're getting hits out of them. So
you've got a buffet. You're just not picking up all everything off the buffet. Is what I'm hearing.
Also, one thing that's probably helpful, and it's actually kind of impending doom out here on the West Coast, is a lot of these animation jobs are kind of being outsourced to production credits in other parts of the world. So animation, unfortunately, is a very easy thing to outsource. So that could be another thing in Netflix's favor with some of these things.
Yeah, I just also noticed, I just pulled up Adi Shankar, bootleg universes where I have more of my knowledge of him, but I also noticed that he's got 5 series on Netflix. Castlevania Nocturne, Devil May Cry, Captain Laserhawk, a Blood Dragon remix, which is an anime, and then the Guardians of Justice, which was like a DC kind of thing as well. So apparently he must have a first look or some sort of really good deal with Netflix over there. But Devil May Cry, I like the action. It's obviously I'm familiar with the games as a kid. I haven't played any of the newer ones, but they're bringing back some of these properties from the late 90s, early 2000s to do this. And one of those is actually the next one, which is Splinter Cell Deathwatch. We got a little teaser for this, debut, the first look. Splinter Cell, everyone's going to know it's the 3 green eyes, Mike, right? The 2 green eyes and the one in the middle. But I was listening to this. I'm like, man, that sounds really familiar. But Lou Schreiber, who played Wolverine or Sabretooth in Wolverine Origins, will be Sam Fisher in this. So I'm excited to see more of this as it comes to fruition, as they kind of announce it and tease it in production. But I forgot Splinter Cell was even a game series. It was so popular for a while there.
There's a YouTube content creator that I really liked called Nakey Jakey, and he does kind of little video essays, mostly about video games. And he did one recently about just the concept and execution of stealth video games, and he kind of went through the history and what makes a good stealth game and a bad stealth game. So talked a lot about Metal Gear, which was kind of my childhood of stealth video games, and then seemed like Splinter Cell was the other side of the coin, kind of growing up back in that PlayStation 1, 2 generation. So I'm sure people have a lot of affinity for Splinter Cell. I just wasn't playing it. I'm sure it was great, but it does make me want to go back and revisit these kind of other stealth genres that I never got to play. I guess the Hitman games have just been popping off like crazy over the years, and I've just been totally oblivious to them. But I guess those are some really fun stealth gameplay.
They did a Splinter Cell. Hitman VR recently as well, so I imagine playing Hitman in VR would be interesting. But I always forget Splinter Cell's one of the Tom Clancy games. Mike, you remember Tom Clancy on all those military games for again like late 90s, early 2000s. So he had a bunch of novels and stuff in there, but the games they've been dormant since 2013. So sounds like maybe someone was getting some rights and like let's sell it, see what we can do with it along the way. But this is fine. If you're looking for like a stealth, maybe not maybe like a Jason Bourne style animated series is kind of what I have in mind here along the way. I don't know. We'll see as we get more, but it's cool to see all of these video games kind of get some life back in them, right? Tomb Raider, Devil May Cry, Splinter Cell, and that. Yeah. So that wraps up our Netflix Geeked Week, Mike. That was a lot longer than I thought it would be. So we're gonna get into our normal superhero news, and first and foremost is Deadpool and Wolverine, which we got to talk about at the top of the show with you getting to revisit it again, and then your wife seeing it for the first time. But it will hit streaming, and by streaming I mean paid video on demand, not Disney Plus, in October, with the home release coming on 10/22, October 22nd. And they're doing what I hate the most, 2 editions of the Steelbook, Mike. And maybe I can get your opinion, because number one, it's home media release. I'm not buying 2 of these goddamn Steelbooks for my house. Okay, that's the stupidest thing ever. I'm never going to need 2 copies of this movie. If you want to sell the Steelbooks empty separately and the DVDs, that's fine, do that, but I hate this idea. But you got to get one that's Wolverine themed or one that's Deadpool themed. And for this, and Mike, which one of these would you pick if you were to kind of?
Well, the funny thing is, my mind just goes extremely practical in a sense of you're only really ever going to be looking at the spine of it, and the spines seem to be identical, which is the shame, because even on the what we looked at, the aviation gen bottles a while back, and even those bottles had really tiny kind of like either Deadpool or Wolverine icons on them. Yeah, at least they could have done that. Do they both come with the discs with the masks on them, or do those?
Yeah, one is Blu-ray and one is 4K discs.
Oh man, it's been a long time since I've bought physical media. I think I like the Deadpool cover a little bit better. I think I like the composition of Dogpool and Wolverine in front of Deadpool.
Yeah, Dogpool getting second billing on the Deadpool cover. I like the close-up of Wolverine, in his full mask, right, on the Wolverine cover, but the full body pose of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine suited up is pretty good, even though he didn't wear the mask with the sleeves at any point in the movie. I also say the fun thing to look at this, we have a link in our show notes, is the inside of the covers is literally all the Hugh Jackman variants, including the dead Wolverine, Logan skeleton as well. So they're really kind of leaning into that fun. I'm excited to revisit this at home, Mike. I'm jealous you got to see it in theaters. It did not do number 1 this weekend. Beetlejuice took number 1. Transformers 1 was number 2, and I think it's still up there. But like, I'm so jealous you got to see it again. I'm very excited to revisit this movie.
We went at 12:50 matinee on a Sunday, a week a week before the month that this comes out digitally, and I thought we were going to be the only one in the theater, but there was like at least like a dozen people in there, and I was like, wow, okay. The other week we were wondering, if this movie was going to get that kind of last $3 million it needed to overtake.
It did. Avengers.
And
The
it's
first
just like,
Avenger.
it's gonna do it.
Yeah, it did. So that's awesome. That's awesome. So if anyone else has any wants to throw any input on which DVD or home release steelbook I buy, take a look at our notes, tag us, let me know. I'm very, very interested in what you guys' opinions are. But this is great. I'm excited to get to see it in, and I will not do the paid video. I'll wait for the I guess the digital code that comes with this or the streaming on Disney Plus. But we are in the home stretch, Mike. We're gonna have a good holiday season. Can you imagine all your family Christmas Eve gathering on the TV to watch Deadpool and Wolverine one last time?
Yeah. I got to imagine before the end of the year this hits Disney Plus.
Right. Yeah. You're gonna get those last those. Well, I mean, when did Disney Plus launch? October of 2019.
It was I think it was in a November.
Okay. Yeah. So if they're gonna do it those times, like me, my yearly subscription expires, and they're like, oh, well, guess next month we get Deadpool and Wolverine. You're gonna need to re-up.
Yep.
So I think it's gonna be that one along the way. Moving on, Spider-Man. We've been talking Spider-Man quite a bit lately. The rumor is, and this is all in flux simply because we don't know the details. We don't have a movie lawyer on hand, and Sony and Marvel are very, close, tight-knit conversations. But the rumor is Sony and Marvel have agreed to do 3 solo films for Spider-Man and 3 crossover films. Same as the last deal, pretty much, right? And that Spider-Man / Tom Holland will have a bigger role in Avengers Doomsday than he did in Infinity War and Endgame. I think he had an all right role in Infinity War, but I would say his role was kind of diminished in both of those compared to how big Spider-Man as a franchise is, right? But
well, I mean, it makes sense that his role is going to grow over time, right? Because he's no longer kind of like this fledgling young kid that's trying to join the Avengers. He's probably going to be a proper Avenger. He's an adult. He's gone through major tragic loss. Like, he's kind of left his childhood behind him in his last film. So he's ready to be out there in a bigger role. When I was watching Deadpool and Wolverine, this is such an obvious thing that I never really thought about before. But if we are kind of approaching this big universal, multiversal like reset or flattening or a return to one singular sacred timeline, right? That works out really, really well in a sense of like a lot of this Marvel stuff is now under the Disney banner. But like, what's Sony going to do? I mean, I guess we can always just kind of look over there and just ignore like the weird stuff that they're doing, like with these villains. If they still are going to the well. But like, if they go through this big cinematic reset and there's all of this intensity of these battle worlds and everything, and you have like an Andrew Garfield and a Tobey Maguire re-cameo again, and everything's going nuts. What's Sony? What happens legally when they make these deals again? Because like, it's going to feel so weird to go through all of this work to reset and reboot everything, and then Sony's over here still like, hey, we're finally going to make that Aunt May movie, guys.
I disagree. We did the first 10 years of Marvel without any Fox stuff, and they had Universal and Spider-Man. I don't think anyone will think twice. I talked to someone on Tuesday who she watched Madam Web with her dad, and she was like, what the hell happened with this movie? I was like, I can't tell you. Like it's just bad and it's not a good time. But I think the audiences are smart enough to figure out, when they see that Sony stuff, they're like, this is different. This isn't the real Marvel stuff. And Marvel will we might even see those disclaimers, MCU proper, right? When people see the newer Marvel logos, I think they'll be fine. But I don't know. Maybe Sony will just be like, we like money. Maybe we just let Marvel handle everything from now on, and we just take the cut, right? Like, we'll take our money at the end of the day. Because if you look at, the last 3 Spider-Man movies were huge, right? Even that last one, $1 billion, 2021, like, right? Still COVID theaters, and it still took in over $1 billion. Could you imagine what that movie would have done, like, if it was this year? Like, right? Like, after, Deadpool and Wolverine, then you had to come in and watch Spider-Man No Way Home, like, that movie would probably make $2 billion, right? So I think the audiences will be fine with that. But I'm interested to see, and I just thought, knowing that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back as Victor Von Doom, and he looks the same, will Peter, being the only person, will he be like, oh my God, Mr. Stark kind of thing? Do you is he going to have an affinity for that character along the way?
I will go absolutely crazy if it is never brought up that Doctor Doom looks exactly like Tony Stark. I know we have lots of statements out there in the world, right? To me, it just seems insane to rehire Robert Downey Jr. back into this universe and not work into the story that he looks exactly like this iconic hero that saved, half of the universe, right, by sacrificing himself. And some people are like, no, it's not a Tony Stark variant. This is a Victor Von Doom. But it's just like you can't.
They will.
It's like when they did, because I think I'm primed and I'm triggered right now, just because I did like a recap of WandaVision before we went into Agatha All Along, and the whole Quicksilver recast bait and switch that had us in a frenzy over here because it was like a recast and we thought it was going to be a multiversal thing, but it wasn't, and it's just like, no, you cannot put Robert Downey Jr. back in a scene with Tom Holland. They have to remark that you look a lot like my mentor that died for our sins.
Well, I think they will, because they've already primed. I thought you were really going to say they primed you in Deadpool and Wolverine that you just got out of because of Chris Evans. Like, they were like, oh, he's going to be Captain America. And then he's like, no, he's a Human Torch. Like, yeah, they're going to be like, yeah, same actor, different roles, right? Like, it may not be as comedic as, Chris Evans hitting his nuts on a big metal sign or getting his skin ripped off, or, the post-credit scenes. But I do think they will. They're smart enough to know that, right, along the way. That, we can't just, we're not gonna hand wave this. We're not gonna shove it under the rug. They're gonna have some fun with that. And I look forward to seeing what they do with it along the way, because I think Doom needs to be more serious than Tony Stark. I know he could be similar, but like, he needs to be more like, we're here to solve problems rather than be quippy along the way. A couple other notes. Kevin Feige is set to remain in charge of the new trilogy, so we do not have to worry about Sony getting their hands in here, right? A little stressful in that one for a little bit. I was like, oh, maybe. And then also they're going to be shooting Spider-Man 4 and Avengers Doomsday in 2025. So that's why they're looking to get this done, finalized, and get them both in production next year, so Tom Holland can be doing both of them, right? Maximize that along the way. Moving on, Penguin came out this week, Mike. I haven't got a chance to watch the first episode yet. I do have it queued up, but have you had a chance to watch any of this yet?
Man,
I know you're not interested, but I'm gonna watch the first episode. Whether I'm not interested,
saying, like,
but
I've actually heard good things. We've been saying on this show for weeks now, the best way to make this show work is just make an amazing kind of crime mafia drama show that just happens to have IP characters in it, and then if it's good enough, people will watch it. But I mean, even though like the streaming wars are technically like in a cold war right now because ain't nobody has money to spend on anything, there's still like way too much to watch, and I'm just like, do I dare carve out time in my precious schedule for the Penguin franchise that we kind of, I don't want to be negative and say it's on its last leg, but we know like the Matt Reeves universe probably isn't going to go past the third Batman movie, so it's like,
yeah, that's another 15 years at this rate.
Yeah, I guess it's like, how much do we put in here? But yeah, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm sure it's great. Everyone put in a lot of good work. I heard a lot of the new characters that surround Colin Farrell in the show are actually really, really good. So, but like, man, is this a hard decision to make of just like, what do I do with my Sunday night? Is it the Penguin? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know when this drops. Was that maybe on Thursday or something? It was in the middle of the week when I saw it come through. I will check out the first episode because, again, I've not revisited the Batman since it came out in 22. So I'd like to see what the role is, see if it's interesting. Again, I'm still of the opinion we do not need another Chris Nolan Batman universe, right? We've already done it. Then every time they say we're going to do Batman, we're going to do it more gritty. We're going to do it more realistic, Mike. I don't want that. I'm tired of realistic, gritty Batman. Yes, Joel Schumacher took it the opposite direction and made it too goofy and too cartoony, but you can find a happy medium these days, right? We are in 2024. Marvel shows exist that are goofy. The Boys is realistic yet hyper violent, right? Like you can find a medium that fits a Batman character in here. So I'm going to check out the first episode. If anyone else has checked it out or plan on watching the whole series, I think it's 6 episodes, maybe 8 on Max. Let us know. And then the last few minutes of the show here, Mike, let's take some time to discuss Agatha All Along, the latest Marvel show. It's the second Marvel series this year to land. The other one, no, third. Was Loki this year? It was, wasn't it? It's the third one. Echo. I had Echo in my head. Echo was the first one. Loki season 2, and then Agatha All Along. We are just going to go ahead. The first 2 episodes are on Disney Plus. We're going to do full spoilers here. So if you haven't watched it, pause here, go watch it, and come back and listen. It's hard to really talk about. Like the whole show's not out, so I don't know what we'd be spoiling that hasn't been in the trailers, because everything in the trailers pretty much is, or most of the stuff in the trailers is in these first 2 episodes. But
also the whole show is essentially a spoiler for WandaVision, because it's kind of like a spiritual season 2 with a character in a way. It connects with the events of, I guess, even Multiverse of Madness in a way. So
there's a lot going on to come into this, but it has been a good time. So full spoilers from here on out. First 2 episodes. So I think the best way to talk about the first episode. I see why they gave us 2 episodes, Mike. The first episode is like, we're going to give you, hey, here's what Agatha was seeing in her world when she was locked in from Wanda, right? She's essentially doing Mayor of Easttown, not true crime. What's that?
Very true detective.
True detective,
At least with the opening kind of credit style, it's like, oh, this is True Detective.
Yeah, and she's doing Mary. She's a detective who's off she's suspended with pay, but she's been brought back to solve this case. Come find the body. As we've seen, the body is Wanda's body. Now, I will say they do not show Elizabeth Olsen in this, and the showrunner's gone out to say, like, this show is not about the Scarlet Witch. The show is not about Elizabeth Olsen's character. This is about Agatha, so we don't need to show her, and that's perfectly fine.
I like this concept. I mean, I'm very mixed on this show right now, and I'll reserve obviously final judgment, as everyone should, until you watch the whole series and see kind of what they do. But I do like this impetus of like, oh, this is a great time to rejoin the character, because Agatha, the one who not Agatha, Wanda, the one who trapped her there, she is supposedly dead, or at least her power has been reduced to near nothing.
This universe's version is dead. The multiversal, she could be alive.
Yeah. So she now kind of has this ability to kind of get out of the hex, get out of there. So I love that they worked that into the story, because I was like, oh, this makes sense to me. Like, why should we be joining the story now? And we have like a really solid reason why.
Yeah. And the first episode is essentially her. We meet a couple of the main characters, including Aubrey Plaza's Rio and Joe Locke, I believe is his name. His name is Teen right now. We don't know his name. And essentially she gets out of the hex and she's like, okay, I'm powerless because Wanda took my power. And then episode 2 is, okay, to get power back, we have to go to the end of the Witch's Road, where you're granted, a gift of whatever you want. And, obviously she has to build a coven to get there, and we get to meet the ancillary characters who will join her down this road. I will say one thing, I'm disappointed. This show's not yet as scary as I was hoping it would be for spooky season. There were some pretty creepy things in episode 2, but I have really enjoyed all the characters around Agatha in both episodes. There's a moment she's having a discussion with her neighbor, and she's just butt-ass naked, like on screen, and talking to him. And she sees nothing wrong with it. Like, she doesn't even pay attention. She's like, I just got out of this hex. What's going on? What year is it? How long have I been here? And he's like, could you put some clothes on the whole time? I'm like, and then he's like, you've been acting weird lately, and this is the most lucid you've been in a while. So it was really funny there's some funny moments in there, but like seeing Catherine Hahn come into her more evil self compared to the detective part. That was other funny. That was very overplayed. I like Catherine Hahn's evil reserved self along the way. Right, it's fun to have someone who's just a bad character be bad on screen.
The first episode almost lost me, because I could see what they were doing. Right, she's trapped. Catherine Hahn is hamming it up as like this detective. She's slowly kind of breaking through to the other side as people start to kind of like break her out of it. But I was like, oh, this this gimmick was done for me after about 10 minutes, and I had enough of it. And these first 2 episodes are like 45 minutes long. So I was like, come on, let's just get her out of this hex. This is not fun. I see you did the cop parody. Okay, let's get it over with. So that was a little hard for me to watch. And there's a lot of world building that has to get done in mainly the second episode. Like, they have to set up a lot of rules for witches and how they operate. And to me, it felt very weird, because I kept reminding myself, like, oh, if this wasn't in the MCU, if this was just like a random like Halloween story about witches that's like premiering on like Netflix or something like that, I could like kind of let myself go. But like, this is supposed to be within a superhero universe, but now all of a sudden we're learning rules about like covens, and like, oh, there's always a coven within like 3 miles, which seems extremely arbitrary. And they're kind of hinting at the fact of like, oh, witches are just like everywhere. They're all over the place, but you've never known about them. They've been here the whole time through the entirety of like history. It's just very odd that there's this big reveal of this whole other side of the supernatural. And and you have to establish it, because Agatha needs this world to play along in. She needs a reason to exist. But for me right now, the show feels like a response to a very successful outing for WandaVision. And I loved WandaVision, and I loved her character in it. But it doesn't feel like something that was born out of the MCU. It's like, oh, this was a fun thing that happened in WandaVision, but let's just figure out how this is supposed to fit within this world of like Iron Man and Hawkeye and the Hulk and Scarlet Witch.
I'm on the other side. I disagree entirely. Like, if you basically, Iron Man's the incident, we can only do stuff that exists in the first Iron Man movie. You've locked yourself in, and Marvel, comics is not that way. And I'm not going to wait for a reboot to be like, all right, reestablish these new rules. So to me, that they have these quick and fast rules is fine. But like, the witches she's cast or added along the way, well, they're hiding in daylight. They don't think they are. I don't know if they're powerless. I don't think they're powerless, but they're doing stuff you would like. Oh, one is selling scam candles. One is a mystical palm reader. Like, yeah, that could be witches. The third one, she's just a daughter of a witch who's like a guard at Hot Topic kind of thing. So that's fine. I do think what's her name? She's Kitty.
Deborah Jo Rupp.
I think she's an ace in the hole. I think she has something to her, and that's why they're bringing her along rather than like, oh, you're just available and we need a green witch, even though it's supposed to be Aubrey Plaza's character. So I'm interested to see if she's like a one of those she's going to turn out to have a witch powers or something like that, because she's fun.
I feel like she's supposed to be like our Han Solo. She is the character that's not familiar with what's going on, so there's a reason that somebody's on this witch's road asking questions. Yeah. This whole concept of the witch's road, I'm not saying I don't like it, but I don't know anything about it just yet. So they're in some sort of other plane of existence. They're trying to get from point A to point B, and then they're going to have like these dark, scary witches, which were actually executed like really cool. Yeah. I liked it when they were outside of the house and they're like slowly
kind of like Death Eaters, kind of like a Harry Potter vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a cool vibe, but yeah, I think just a lot of it. It just, I don't know. It doesn't feel very clean and tight to me. It seems like they're trying to find a way to fit a witch's story within a superhero world. And I'm not saying the witch's story isn't going to be good, but to me it just feels out of place. But you're right. They needed 2 episodes, because I didn't really start getting excited until they were in the basement, like singing the song, like trying to get this thing going. Because I was just like, I want to be entertained, and I feel like all we're doing is getting the gang together, and it's just like, I need to get this. Let's get this going. Okay?
I like the gang they put together. They're all opposite. I don't think it's. Again, I entirely disagree, and that's to be the show. So I don't think it's a response to WandaVision, because WandaVision was more her magic, and this is more magic, but like Doctor Strange has established there's magic in the world, just how different people use it have different names for it. So I don't think it's like, oh, this is brand new popping up for the first time. We've had Doctor Strange since 2016.
I think if the casting director went with their whatever their second choice was for Catherine Hahn, if it wasn't Catherine Hahn, this show wouldn't exist.
Well, right,
they fell in love with her interpretation of it, and then they decided, let's build this out now because people loved it so.
But and that's fine. But like this isn't like, oh, this is the first witch ever. We have to like, it's not a. It can be a response to that because they like her, but I still think like, oh, we have a story to tell here, and they will tell us a story which will tie into more, because the biggest thing is, and I thought they wouldn't do this in the show, there is some sort of spell or hex or some sort of magic around Teen, the kid Joe Locke's character, where you can't hear his name. Like I thought it was just an edit in the trailer where they blocked his name. It's in the show, and then when he tells his background, like he's still talking, but like there's no sound, right? Like it's like 2 reveals in episode 1 and 2. So I think again, the theory is, Mike, and this is, take it what you will, that he is one of the sons of Vision and Wanda, like a remnant of it, or like he's come to life somehow, like right older, and we're not getting the kids anymore. So we may find out that he is in fact Billy or Tommy Maximoff from that, and that would tie into the Vision series, which is next, which we do know that this I think this will tie into Vision somehow. And then after that, there's rumors on the horizon that a Wanda movie is in the works, either post Secret Wars, probably post Secret Wars, because they even needed multiversal Wanda, right? Like not the dead one, to be alive for that. So I do think that there is a bigger story arc here in play that we're not seeing yet, because they've not done the announcements, right? They've said we can't announce things too far in advance for once.
And if we can believe the reports that the Darkhold was supposed to be given over by Kang, which they can't do that anymore. So there was ideas of trying to ladder this up into more things. One thing I do really like about the mysterious name, which also the internet is running with, oh, is this Mephisto finally?
Oh, God.
Maybe that's why we can't hear it. Whatever it is, I do like the reaction from Agatha of like, she's not freaking out and going like, tell me your name. She's just like, oh, there's magic happening here. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why I can't hear your name, but I'm not going to let you know that I can't hear it. She's like playing it cool. So that makes sense. And I think Marvel also, I think everyone for the most part with this show got really lucky, because I am a full belief this show wouldn't exist without Catherine Hahn, and also without the insane green light button from Bob Chapek, who was trying to pump as much as possible into Disney Plus.
I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that anymore based on the reports.
I think 100%. You know, if this show would have been pushed out further along in the schedule, I think this could have be on that theoretical chopping block that we keep talking about with things like maybe like Armor Wars or something.
I think
like that.
Ironheart
but
was.
I think we're lucky in the fact of like, this is basically the same creative team that was working on WandaVision, and that show was great. So I think we should all count ourselves lucky that this oddball of a show exists with a good creative team. So I'm hopeful for the rest of the show for sure. But I think we should all count ourselves lucky that things are going as well as it is, for this show.
As we said, it's the only show that feels like it's got a voice, like it's unique, right? It's got a point, it's got a style, it knows what it's doing. It's not falling under like, Falcon and Winter Soldier was trying to be, Civil War 2, right? And I think, to me, you say, oh, it's lucky because, Wanda. Well, the whole MCU is lucky because Tony Stark or Robert Downey Jr. was able to pull off Iron Man. So they're all, again, reactionary. They are a company. Like what got talks, what got subscribers. WandaVision did, Loki did, some of the other stuff that first, didn't. But I think, you have someone in charge who knows what they're doing. They know the voice. They know the thing. They're not trying to fix this in post. It is what it is. But I think it's going to bubble up to more magic things in the MCU, more unexplainable things that aren't like, oh, he wears an iron suit or he took a super soldier serum, because the MCU has to grow. Marvel has to add these other characters, or else we're going to be getting the same things over and over again. Like, as much as I'm excited for Captain America Brave New World, it feels like a loop, right? It feels like we're back at Captain America Winter Soldier again when I'm like, well, we could be getting newer, better things, but because we're stuck in a Captain America, Super Soldier, Hulk loop, we have to come back to that at the end of the day. So I'm excited. I will say my wife, who obviously doesn't listen to this, doesn't keep up with this as much as we do, she's having a ball with this show. She's like, I love it. I love the music. She's like, I love the sassiness, the snarkiness of the kids and the characters. So they're all playing off each other really well, and I'm excited to see what the road journeys tell, because it feels like every there are 4 more episodes, right? Or there's it's 8, and there's a double on week of Halloween. By the way, I was gonna put that in here. That it's gonna be like each episode's gonna be like a square on the board game of the Witch's Road. So like what next week is gonna be like, oh, what horror trope, witch trope are we gonna tackle next week? But I know one of them is also where they revisit the WandaVision, the 70s set. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. It feels like, again, the costume designers have done a great job. It really feels different and visually appealing for the shows at the end of the day.
I'm curious if the structure that they used for the first season of WandaVision is gonna come back up at all. I mean, I didn't know that they were going to be revisiting that 70s set, so I guess they could pop back into there.
I would say pace-wise, the first 2 episodes this feel very similar to WandaVision's first 2 episodes, right? Like that first one's like, what are we doing in the the 40s or 50s it was, and then the next one was like
and it took I don't remember if the person in the bee costume was at the end of the first episode or the end of the second.
I think it was second
episode.
when they started crossing over into the thing.
It took a minute for it till I think the end of the second episode is maybe when they revealed that shield was on the outside of this hex, if I remember right, and they were sword. Was it sword or was it shield? I don't know, one of them.
Oh yeah. I think it was Sword in this situation. Whatever it was, whatever company it was. But like, the mystery, the things didn't really kick off until the second episode, right? Like the first one was like, oh, we're in this interesting thing, and that one dude, I guess, Deborah Jo Rupp's husband was choking or something, and then obviously then the second one you're like, oh, it's the 40s and 50s again. So I'm excited to see where this takes us. We've got some spooky stuff coming up in Halloween here. Obviously, it's ending before that. I lament the lack of Aubrey Plaza. I wish we had more of her. I feel like the first fight was great, but I want more of her in this show. And I think we're going to get more of her based on the teaser we saw for like, here's this season on Agatha All Along. But I lament the lack of her so far, and whatever mysterious character she's playing along the way. Is it Mephisto? Probably not, but we'll keep guessing it is until we get there. All right. Well, Mike, if people want to know what you're doing, what you're up to, where can they find you at, my friend?
Oh, they can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com or liferewardsrisk.com. Chris, people want to catch up with you. See you printing your 3D shell around yourself.
Yeah, I am done with paper printing, Mike. We're only doing things in 3-dimensional these days. Makes VR come to life. No, but you can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN, or Video Game Systems of the same name. If people want to know about the show where we come back every week, or find all the show notes with all these links for Netflix's Geeked Week this week, where can they get all them goodies at?
Yeah, if you want to access our Witch's Road, you don't need to sing a ballad.
That's kinky. That's kinky. I don't like it.
You don't need to go through some sort of magical door in your basement. All you have to do is go to superheroslate.com. It's a domain name. That's where we put all of our stuff. That's where all of our things are. We don't have a storage container. We don't have a supply closet. We have superheroslate.com. And that's where we can get all of our awesome show notes. You can find us at Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. I don't know where else we are, but we're out there, and we love it. So we want you to visit us at superheroslate.com. We got merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. What did you think of the first 2 episodes of Agatha All Along? Are you going to watch The Penguin? What is your favorite Netflix anime churn on the conveyor belt? What video game has been thrown onto that belt recently that you're excited to see? Let us know. We love our super fans, so if you want to be a super fan of this show, So easy to do. All you have to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we'll be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.